Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the regular meeting of Fernie City Council for January 24th, 2023. We begin by acknowledging that the city of Fernie is located within Kukinamakis, the unceded traditional territory of Yakut-Atmutliut. We recognize that we live and work within their vast lands. The Kanahunik are from Yakut-Atmutliut and are members of the Ktunaxa-speaking peoples of British Columbia, Idaho, and Montana. I'll now call this meeting to order. This meeting is being conducted by in-person and electronic means in accordance with Council Procedure Bylaw number 2446. We're using a communication link via the specified place. And I'll ask for a mover and second for the following staff recommendation that if the communication link to the specified place for this meeting is interrupted and cannot be restored within 15 minutes, the meeting shall adjourn and reconvene to the soonest possible time that quorum can be achieved and the public notice requirements met. Mover, please. Councillor Kelly, Councillor Shoesmith, all in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. I will ask for approval of the agenda with a late item. That the agenda be amended to include late item 9.9, Chamber of Commerce request letter, and that the agenda be adopted as amended. Oh, sorry, 10.9. It's my reading, not yours. Councilor McIsaac, seconded. Councilor Ramadas, all in favor? Thank you. I'll ask for a mover and a seconder to adopt the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on January 10th, 2023. Councilor Hamilton, Councilor Kelly, all in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. I'll now open the floor to public participation. I invite the public in attendance or participating electronically who wish to comment on items listed on the meeting agenda in accordance with section 3.7.3 of the procedure bylaw to address council, excluding matters for which speakers must not address council regarding matter for which a public hearing must be held or has been held pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of the matter or adoption of the bylaw. Speakers must not address council regarding a permit for which public notice must be given or has been given pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of issuance of the permit. And finally, a speaker may only address council for a maximum of 3 minutes. Ms. Rhodes, is there anyone who wishes to speak from the public?
No, Your Worship, there is no one from the public at the specified place.
Thank you very much. We shall move on then to item 9.1. Development variance permit application number DVPA 525, the Cedars Phase 5, with a report from our manager of engineering.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here to present to you on development variance permit application for Cedars Phase 5. And so just as a brief review, there's the map of the Cedars with the previous phases, and this permit is applicable to the roads within the yellow area. The blue areas highlight the roads. Summary of the proposed variance was to vary several standards in bylaw number 1727 for the proposed extension of Sunset Lane, including reducing the pavement width, reducing the gravel lane width, and changing the streetlight specification. Leading up to this meeting, public notice was given of council's intent to consider the issuance of DVP 525, meeting the requirements of the Local Government Act. Notice was posted on the city's public notice posting places on or before January 13th, and the public notice was mailed to registered owners within a 15-meter radius of the subject property before January 13th, 2023, and delivered to those occupants in surrounding buildings. One public submission was received. The concerns raised were surrounding the phase 1 pathway being incomplete, and about the traffic volumes at the Mount Fernie Park Road intersection. So in the first development variance permit that was issued for the Cedars in 2014 in phase 1, there was a condition that a gravel pathway be constructed adjacent to the road and that pavement would be added to that pathway at a later phase. This permit wasn't really specific enough in nature, so no associated security was collected from staff at the time of subdivision to ensure that pathway work did get complete. So this issue can and will be rectified as part of the phase 5 subdivision, so staff will be receiving security or a concrete sidewalk extending through phases 1 and 5 prior to issuing the phase 5 subdivision. And then that security is available should the developer not follow through in constructing it. The city would have the funds to do so ourselves. And then to address the second concern about the Mount Fernie Park Road intersection, traffic impact assessment was completed in August 2022, so recently, to support this phase 5 development. In phase 5 to 11 adds a total of 58 new single-family lots and up to potentially 125 multifamily units. And the report completed by the traffic engineering consultants concluded that based on the existing and expected traffic volumes, that the intersection operates within acceptable capacity through beyond phase 5 to phase 8 of the Cedars development, at which time intersection upgrades will be warranted partially by the development.
Through your worship to staff, did the traffic assessment also consider the impact of development on the other side of the harbor? Riverside and area.
Your worship, through to Councillor Hamilton, I believe the traffic impact assessment was specific to the leg of the intersection that this development accesses from, so just the intersection of Mount Fernie Park Road. But I'd have to check the traffic impact assessment. They typically have the intersection with all turning directions and numbers, so the main warrants would be associated with the road that the developer accesses by, but probably did consider the other volumes.
As a follow-up, then, at what point do we look at the sum total of all the development happening that's impacting that intersection? And what would trigger Modi to update that intersection? Because I've heard from many other people as well that that intersection is becoming a concern, both for the Riverside and Cedar side, turning onto the highway.
Your worship, through Councillor Hamilton, I believe that Modi also does, owning the main through corridor there, do the traffic impact assessments as well, and we do refer the ones that are completed by the city and associated developers to them. And I think that that is going to be the prime trigger when they upgrade their highway based on the required traffic volumes.
And if I may, we have been in conversation with Modi, and had one conversation with them thus far and have one coming up, and if forgive me, I can't remember the date, and this is the primary topic of discussion, this intersection. Sorry, Councilor McCausey.
No, thank you, Richard. Just a question. Who owns the road from the highway to Anderson Road? Is it the city?
Mount Fernie Park, right?
Mount Fernie,
Yeah.
city owned Mount Fernie Park Road.
So is the speed limit on that road 40 as per all other city things? Because immediately following the intersection, so for those of you that haven't driven that intersection, there's a stop sign on either way on Anderson Road on Cedar side, and the rest of it is through. Immediately after the intersection, as you're entering the park, it switches to 20. But I don't believe there's a speed sign when you turn off the highway onto that road. And I don't know if this relates to the specific concern that the citizen has written in about, but I'm on that road regularly. People fly up and down the road until they get to the Cedars. The traffic is quite, it's not that there's a lot of traffic, but the traffic is fast. And if you're doing 60 or 70, when you get to that intersection, there's no way you're at 20 by the time you're entering into the park. So one potential mitigation of some of the concerns in there would be simply some traffic control indication for people that it's not a 60 speed limit there, because they've just come off the highway. Just a thought.
Thank you.
And so
Councilor
the
Nixon, sorry.
recommendation.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Manager Weir, Councilor Nixon.
Thank you, Your Worship. So in September of 2022, Councilor McIsaac, Councilor Hamilton, and Mr. Bornowski were all in a room with MOE staff who had assured us that the engineering was being completed on that roundabout. Now, is that not the case now? Is it just they did a traffic impact assessment and they told us one thing, but then did another? Or I don't understand.
Well, as I understood it, the preliminary engineering and design has been completed for a roundabout. The cost escalation was such that at this time, given, so I'm not trying to quote Modi, so this is the gist of, this is just relating what I understood, was that given the costs of putting a roundabout in there, the highway function was such that it didn't yet justify that spend.
Okay, and just to further that, I mean, in 4 years, it's gonna be cheaper, right?
Yeah. Sorry to say that. Well, and as I said, we have an upcoming meeting with Maria, and this is the primary topic of discussion, so we'll see. I'll certainly update council when we have the conversation.
Thank you.
Manager Weir, Karen.
So just the recommendation here for your consideration is the issuance of the development variance permit for senior space.
Any other questions? Councilman Jeff.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one question with regards to the street lighting. The street lighting that's up there, I think this particular variance is in order to ensure that we have a consistent street lighting throughout that particular subdivision. But we have, not very long ago, there was some questions with regards to street lighting and change and so on. And I'm just wondering if any information has been revealed in that investigation regarding lighting and so on that would affect this particular application.
Your worship, through to Councilor McIsaac, no, that investigation hasn't impacted this application. The applicant has submitted an illumination plan that details the level of illumination they're planning to meet, which is current standards, and the wattage of the bulbs is in line with that and not overly high that I'm aware.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Can I ask? Councilor Daniel to read the resolution.
That council authorize the issuance of development variance permit number DVP 525 to vary the city of Fernie subdivision and development servicing bylaw number 1727 as set out in attachment 1 DVP 525.
Can I have a mover? Councilor Ramirez, seconder, Councilor McIsaac, all in favor? Any opposed? No. Thank you. On to item 9.2, development variance permit application number DBPA 533, Montaigne Parkway, Montaigne Phase 5B. Again, Ms. Weir, report from Manager of Engineering.
Okay, and the second presentation on Montaigne Phase 5B Development Variance Permit application, as previously discussed at the December 12th regular meeting of council. So briefly, there's a map of Montaigne and showing the existing and proposed development and the areas of the previous development variance permits, and the permit tonight is only relevant to the road section shown in brown. DVP 533 is an application by Fairstone Developments to vary the subdivision development servicing bylaw in a number of standards, reducing the pavement width, adding flat panel curb, increasing the sidewalk width, alternating the sidewalk material, and installing a ditched stormwater system, as well as an alternate street light. So leading up to this meeting, public notice was given of council's intent to consider the issuance of development variance permit 525, meeting the requirements of the Local Government Act. It was posted at the city's public notice posting places on or before January 13th and was mailed to registered owners within a 50-meter radius of the subject property on or before January 13th, as well as hand delivered to any occupants of the surrounding buildings in that 50-meter radius. Two submissions from the public were received from residents, so I've summarized their concerns and will attempt to provide some commentary or background on their concerns. The concerns surrounded not sufficient on-street parking, particularly at the Erie 4-lot strata, which is accessed from strata-owned road, and further to that, that the existing off-street parking in Montaigne is always full. So as discussed related to parking at the previous meeting, the residents are correct in that this proposed design does not provide any additional parking, and this design of having no on-street parking is fairly unique to this neighborhood. They reference existing conditions of approved phases of development that are not anticipated, the issues aren't anticipated to be exacerbated by the addition of these 5 lots and the short section of Montaigne Parkway that is under construction. And as mentioned, the lots are large and there are geotechnical constraints for the building site. So we do anticipate when the lots are developed that they will have fairly long driveways to have ample parking for the residents and their visitors. And we would note that should this road standard be proposed to be continued beyond this phase, we would suggest that we address some form of on-street or off-street additional parking to support resident parking and density increases along Montaigne Parkway. The resident who submitted the comment does not believe that widening the sidewalk to 2.5 meters was warranted. Presented some concerns about the location of the 2.5 meter wide sidewalk on the steep slopes, and then also concerns with the lifespan of the pathway. Staff do see this 2.5 meter pathway as an amenity that can support active transportation with a variety of modes, and the trail will be located on the northwest side of Montaigne Parkway, which is not the side the new lots front off of where the steep slope is, so that sort of hopefully would alleviate the concerns to do with putting a pathway on that steep slope. It will be on the other side. And staff do agree that the lifespan of asphalt is significantly shorter than concrete, approximately half of that. And as discussed at the previous staff meeting or council meeting, this proposed is a multi-use path, which we think is an acceptable use of asphalt, but should there be further construction of sidewalks in Montaigne neighborhood, we would like to see the developer move to installing concrete sidewalks. Asphalt wasn't approved previously in the previous phase of development. The resident also comments on the need for Montaigne Parkway to be paved. This topic has a long history of discussion with staff and council over the past 5 years. Montaigne developments do have current applications in that are being reviewed by the engineering and planning departments, and including a set of engineering drawings showing the design for paving and constructing Montaigne Parkway to the standard that is part of these development variance permits. And as well as adding a sanitary sewer under that road, which is not currently there. So the timing for the paving of Montaigne Parkway would be dependent on the progression of these development applications that have been received by staff. And then there were concerns about the stormwater system capacity rates, and the stormwater system has been designed and sealed by a professional engineer retained by the developer, as well as reviewed by myself, a professional engineer on behalf of the city of Fernie. And there are no known concerns with the capacity of the system. And we are currently reviewing what's called Montaigne North Stormwater Management Plan, which details the proposed upgrades to improve stormwater quality. So start treating their stormwater from existing and future phases, which is positive. So then there's the recommendation for council to issue the development variance permit.
Councilor Allen.
Thank you. To your worship, to staff. I had one question about the stormwater management, and it's less specific to DVP and more kind of holistic or philosophical. And when you're assessing these capacity systems, what sort of modeling are you using? The thought that comes to mind is our next item on the agenda with the bin wall at Coal Creek, which is directly below this. And the experience we had in November 2021 with the atmospheric river event. Just curious about, as we develop more and more of the side of this mountain, we're going to have more and more runoff because it's not going to be absorbed. And at what point does the modeling trigger a change in the built environment?
Your worship, through to Councilor Hamilton, the way that this volume and capacity of the system is currently calculated is based on our existing subdivision servicing bylaw. So standards that are fairly old and are proposed to be updated, but they are still in the update, it will be significantly similar, like the methods for calculating stormwater runoff haven't excessively changed in the last couple decades, other than considering climate change as a new addition to the modeling, certainly. I would say two things about the city just is in the process right now, completing updated Coal Creek floodplain mapping, and that does consider the whole watershed of Coal Creek. So that's our tool for understanding the volume and capacity of Coal Creek to take all of the water beyond just montane developments, including from the other sides of the valley and whatnot. And the stormwater management plan that we're reviewing specific to montane, they would be detailing the volumes of water and proposing to construct ponds that slow the release of that water and treat that water. So if anything, what they're proposing is certainly going to help in slowing the speed at which all of the runoff gets to Coal Creek under the current conditions.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Much done. Let's read the recommendation.
Yes, that council authorize the issuance of development variance permit number DVP 533 to vary the city of Fernie subdivision and development servicing bylaw number 1727 as set out in attachment 1 DVP 533.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Nixon. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. This brings us to item 9.3, the Mountain View Dike Phase 2 and Coal Creek bin wall funding opportunity. A report from our project engineer. Is that Ms. Line?
Pardon me. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here this evening to request the Council's support of an application to the Union of BC Municipalities Community Emergency Preparedness Fund for the Mount View Dike Phase 2 and Coal Creek Bin Wall Upgrade Project. First, some background. In 2019, the city retained Northwest Hydraulic Consultants to complete a flood mitigation plan. The report identified the flood hazards in our community based on the existing flood protection infrastructure and floodplain mapping from 2017. Many of the existing dikes were determined to be too low based on design floods and applicable standards and need to be raised. The report also identified several gaps in flood protection throughout the community. The recommended mitigation measures throughout the city were prioritized based on associated risks, and the results shown in that table in the blue. And below is an image of our engineered dike sections that we have.
We're not seeing your presentation.
Oh no, I apologize.
No.
Oh boy, pardon me.
It's been a great verbal report so far.
So when can you see it now?
No.
How about,
There we go. We've got it. now.
I apologize, Mayor Milligan and everybody else.
No need.
All right. Let's see. Now I've lost my groove. I apologize. So 2019, we did the flood mitigation plan, and in the same year, the city of Fernie secured 1.5 million in funding through the National Disaster Mitigation Program and contributed 330,000 of our own municipal reserve funds to complete the Priority 1 project identified in the flood mitigation plan, the Northlands Maiden Lake Dike project, which is in that little box at the bottom. In 2020, the city of Fernie received $750,000 of funding from UBCM's Community Emergency Preparedness Fund to complete the Mount View Dike Phase 1 upgrades, a portion of the identified Priority 3 project. This extended the existing dike, closing an identified gap in flood protection. So right down at the bottom of the Mount View neighborhood. In 2021, the city secured almost $4.8 million of funding through the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program for funding the detailed design and construction of the Annex Dike upgrades, which wrapped up last fall. This is the Priority 2 project identified in the flood mitigation plan. And now we are all up to speed, so let's move on to the proposed project. There are actually two projects being lumped together in this grant. Linking back to the 2019 plan, the Mount View Dike is the Priority 3 project, and Coal Creek Bin Wall is the 8th priority. You might notice I've highlighted 3 boxes on those structures that we're going to be looking at. So we'll go into a little more detail. First, the Mount View Dike. We are targeting 2 elements of the existing dike for upgrades. One, raising about 0.5 kilometer of the Mount View Dike to flood construction level and correcting top widths and side slopes to meet current standards. Secondly, we'll be armoring about 350 meters of the dike at the confluence of the Elk River and Coal Creek. Then heading up Coal Creek to the bin wall, the project will repair armoring at 2 locations along the bin wall. The flood mitigation plan also mentions the potential for voids within the bin wall. Such voids have been found before and filled at least 1 location. As part of the detailed design, the engineering department and the selected consultant will circle back on this issue and attempt to ensure any voids on the bin wall are identified and remediated as part of this project. The grant we are targeting is funded by the province and administered by the Union of BC Municipalities. It's actually the same grant that funded Phase 1 of the Mount View Dike project. The Community Emergency Preparedness Fund is a suite of funding programs intended to enhance the resilience of local governments, First Nations, and communities in responding to emergencies. The grant can contribute up to $2 million for small-scale structural activities, such as reinforcement of existing public infrastructure that protects against natural hazards, like our dikes. The application period closes February 24th of this year. Our proposed project is estimated to cost 1.9 million, 98 million, pardon me, which is within that funding envelope. The city wouldn't have to cover any costs except for cost overruns should they occur. And the recommendation, this project is an important step to improve flood protection in the Mount View subdivision, a community of over 430 homes. It will protect critical infrastructure that serves the entire town, including the main sewage lift station and the James White Park Wells facilities. It's supported by the flood mitigation plan, and with an estimated project cost of 1.98 million, it would be completely funded through the UBCM program. The desired result of the Community Emergency Preparedness Fund is to fund projects that will enhance the resilience of local governments in responding to emergencies. This project aligns well with the objectives to mitigate and protect against floods and flood-related hazards. It is thus our recommendation and that council directs staff to submit an application. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Lyons. Councilor Hamilton.
I had one question, but Ms. Lyons' last statement triggered another question. In the budget the 1.98 million, what is the contingency percentage that's currently built in?
Yeah, very, very fair question. Did you have a
So-
question?
I did. Mayor Milligan through to Councillor Hamilton. The contingency, it's kind of divided. There's 20% contingency on the Mount View Dike section, and then 35% on the bin wall because of that voids issue.
Then to my other question, for the bin wall side of the project, does this include work for the current somewhat non-existent pathway underneath the CP bridge?
Good question.
Mayor Milligan through back to Councillor Hamilton. No, the bin wall ends right before the bridge. And the identified areas are actually some riprap repair that's further downstream.
Mr. Barnowski, you have a comment?
Just a little context on the trail underpass under the bridge. It was not properly papered when it was first put in, from what we can tell. And while we have a really good working relationship with CP and they're prepared to work with us on permit to maintain, because we don't have a formal license of occupation or permit to create it in the first place, we were unsuccessful, or not unsuccessful, but we were denied. And although we debated the point quite a bit, we were ultimately denied in funding requests to remediate that or to recover from that after the floods from the atmospheric river. And so we are now looking at what are our next options to repair that, because it is our belief that that's a pretty key active transportation connector for the community. So we see it as an important asset, and Mr. Hausler and I have chatted a bit about what our next steps might be in terms of getting funding and unlocking that, because it's pretty critical for the local and visitor experience to Fernie.
Councilor Allen.
I'm sure it's probably already been discussed, but is there not an avenue to approach CP about extending this project, incorporating that pathway to protect their bridge footing and the cost of a catastrophic failure there?
Through Councilor Hamilton, the first step is getting the agreement sorted, the paperwork, and then without that, we can't do a whole lot. The emergency funding was denied based on the lack of an agreement and it being an actual formal trail. So we have to start the paperwork.
And if I can just comment a little further, we did share with them the technical memo following the flood that was completed by McElhaney Engineering that detailed the proposed remediation and riprap, and they're well aware of what we were proposing, and they had indicated no interest of doing it themselves.
Councilor Ramirez.
Thank you, Your Worship. Question to Mr. Winder. What's the, like, are we competing with other municipalities here, and what's the likelihood of securing this funding?
That's a very good question, Mayor Milligan to Councillor Ramadas. I couldn't actually tell you that answer. I don't know.
If I may, Your Worship, we're competing with many other municipalities. I think it's a credit to Ms. Weir and Ms. Line and in their success building dikes off of that flood program. They're now known for just creating a study, working on it year after year, doing really good, well-managed, well-delivered projects. And so I think we're very lucky to have an excellent partner as an engineering firm that we work with in the community, and excellent engineers who've been really successful. But we are in competition. And as you know, competition for flood protection in BC is at an all-time high. So it's not possible for us to estimate what the probability is one way or another.
Yeah, that's fair. Ms. Line, sorry, I think you might have answered this already in your one of your last answers, but the armoring you're referring to on the bin wall is riprap and not replacement of the metal superstructure there.
Mayor Milligan, that's correct. There's like riprap protecting the toe of the bins themselves. And then we'll also be investigating if there's voids within those bins that we will repair.
And forgive me, but how do you repair the voids? You grout them with concrete, or how is that, the voids repaired?
Yeah, Mayor Milligan, the basically we would expose the area like from the top down and then fill it with concrete or some other immovable fill and then recover the top.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Nixon.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well done. That's a great presentation, project engineer line. Enjoyed it immensely. Now I'm just wondering about the timeline. It says in the program guide here, the applicant completion by the applicant within 2 years from the date of grant approval. So that will that project start in 2023 or 2024? Just a question.
Mayor Milligan, through to Councillor Nixon, our plan would be to do finalized detailed design this year and then do construction in the following summer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I will ask Ms. Daniel to read the recommendation.
Yes, that council directs staff to apply to the Union of BC Municipalities Disaster Risk Reduction Climate Adaptation Program, Community and Emergency Preparedness Fund, CEPF, for the detailed design and construction of the Mount View Dike Phase 2 and Coal Creek Thin Wall upgrades.
Can I have a mover? Councilor McIver, seconder, Councilor Ramirez. Any further discussion? All in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. Item 9.4, the letter of support for the Elk Valley Regional Land Trust for our consideration. You've seen the draft letter in your package, and this is in response to a presentation we received at the Committee of the Whole from the Elk Valley Regional Land Trust. Any discussion? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I can provide a small update. I just heard back from our presenter from the Committee of the Whole meeting, and he wanted to let me know that in fact, they're going to be going to the city of, or District of Sparwood and District of Elford to actually ask for letters of support following his presentation and conversation with council here. So rather than signing the petition, as the city of Fernie, he is now going to seek from other local governments letters of support.
Thank you. Okay, so can I ask for a mover? Councilor McIver, seconder, Councilor Hamilton. Any discussion? Councilor Kelly.
I did have some concerns about the letter of support because I took the time to read some things about the Environmental Damage Fund. And they did do a report to the minister that was presented last June that had some recommendations to not necessarily improve, but looked at the program and kind of audited it and moving forward. And capital acquisition does not seem to be there. They are looking at reviewing all of those recommendations with the timeline of December 2023. So I am concerned that, it's out of line with what the federal government is currently looking at doing. They seem to be wanting to pursue the path that they're on currently. So that gave me some pause.
Thank you, Councilor Kelly. I think if I may, that was sort of the point that the Elk Valley Regional Land Trust was asking for the letter to petition the federal government to look in their review at other opportunities for spending this money, including on the purchase of conservation lands. While I your recommendation went through the report myself, you're right, it didn't specifically address conservation lands, but it does. Their ask is for us to support their petition to ask the federal government to do just that.
And then the other piece of that is, should that happen, should the federal government choose to do that? I wasn't really clear from the presentation on, should they get the money to purchase the land and purchase the land, how are they going to then fund ongoing conservation and projects and remediation projects, and who would have access, all of those types of things.
Mm-hmm. Councilor McIver and then Councilor Ramirez.
Thank you, Worship. As discussed during the Committee of the Whole, I expressed this opinion then, and I still believe it. And that is that there's the issue of the land trust is orthogonal to the issue of whether or not the EDF should support capital purchases. So there's just because, even if the federal government receives the petition and agrees in the review to add capital purchases to the fund, that's no guarantee that the Alpha Land Trust is going to get any money. Their project and their proposal is still going to have to meet all the requirements and prove, and they're going to have to demonstrate ongoing fiscal responsibility and all those types of requirements and so on. The issue here before us, I believe, is not specific to the Alpha Land Trust, but is specific to whether or not the federal government should support capital purchases in order to protect riparian areas. It's not just the Alpha Land Trust that might have that opportunity. It could be other communities or other organizations and so on who might want to avail themselves of that opportunity in that fund. So I'm hoping that we will consider this request in that light and vote on it in that regard, and that is whether or not the federal government should allow this fund to be used for purchasing lands to protect riparian areas, regardless of who the applicant might be.
Yeah, sorry, Councilor Ramos, I think that's the light I was looking at. The ask is to support the petition to move the needle on the environmental damages funds consideration for capital purchases, including for conservation lands. As Councilor McIsaac suggests, and even the presenter suggested at the time, there's a long road from them agreeing that that's appropriate to awarding them or any other applicant to that fund, and then they have to go through their arrangement of an endowment fund, their baseline assessment, as I recall, their management plan development, which includes, having been involved in conservation land management plans, a broad range of stakeholder engagement, particularly those who would reasonably affected by the change in use. So I think we're sort of at the very beginning of that conversation, and I think Councilor McIsaac has framed the question quite well.
Your worship, my only question is, I remember seeing the number of stakeholders who have a place on the board there. Probably it's a question back to Kevin there. Have they actually reached out to all the user groups? Like, is that fully well represented? Like, that was my lingering question. Not sure if we have the answer here, but that was something that I did not get out of the presentation.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, well, when we are writing a letter, are we mindful of, other user groups also is my question, because this is a sort of sign of endorsement from us, the council, that this is city's position in a way, and if that is the case, then would need more confidence that there is more user groups and more stakeholders involved in this conversation at the outset.
I reading the letter and sat through the presentation. As Councilor McIsaac alluded to, we're spoke directly about rather, we're here to support federal government looking at changing how they're doing it. What user groups were consulted, how much money they've gotten in endowment to support purchases. That is not what we're discussing right now. And I think we just need to keep focused on the specific ask.
Agreed.
Thank you, Worship. To speak to Councilor Ramadas's concern, and I think it is valid, if the Elk Regional Land Trust Fund, if the petition is successful, if the federal government approves capital projects under the EEF, it's very likely that the land trust is going to be returning to council looking for support for their application. At that point, I think it would be completely appropriate to have a full reveal of who is associated with them and who supports them, and how broad has their communication with the community and groups and so on happened at that time, because at that time we'd be weighing that particular group and not the fund. So I think that there's going to be an opportunity, assuming that this is even successful, and I feel like it's probably a long shot, but assuming it is successful, we are going to have an opportunity when the land trust comes back and wants to make an application here and wants support from the city.
Yeah, and I share Councilor Ramada's concern, and that was
you know, where I was going, plus reading the report that was presented to the minister in June of 2022, it didn't look that that was the path that they were going on with that program. I read that there are other programs that in ECC is looking at conserving land mass, right? 25% by 2025 in some areas and 30% by 2030 in some areas of the country. So, yeah, that was my concern there.
Understood. Any other discussion? Can I ask that you read the resolution?
Yes,
Daniel.
that council provide a letter of support for the Elk Valley Regional Land Trust petition to amend the eligibility requirements of the Environmental Damages Fund as related to the fine paid by Tech Resources Limited.
Can I have a mover? Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor McIsaac. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. Pardon me, item 10.1, request for in-kind municipal support from the Fernie Pride Society.
Okay, I'll move that we write a letter of support.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Allen.
Second.
Councilor McIsaac. Any discussion?
So they're actually not looking for a letter of support, they're looking for in-kind
Yeah,
services. The form that is attached would just be us confirming we're providing those in-kind services.
can I look to our CAO for any comment on the costs associated with that?
Certainly, Mr. Logan, the best positioned, as it's his and Mr. Hausler's department. It might have been a long day. Mr. Hausler's departments who support it directly. Annually, we typically do support Pride. This is a typical annual request to just confirm that we will be providing in-kind support of that specific value or thereabouts in terms of staff hours to set up and dismantle, ensure that our facilities are fit for the festival. Mr. Logan or Mr. Hausler, do you have any other comments on their request?
No, if you check out the page below their request letter, it kind of breaks down the estimates on our in-kind support.
Very good. It is approximately $2,000 of in-kind support to make sure that the live event set up and tear down is supported by the city of Fernie. It is an anticipated event annually for the city and one that staff enjoy supporting.
Thank you.
I'll amend my motion to support the in-kind donation
Thank you.
rather than a letter.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? Councilor Mason.
I'm a little offended that the mayor's address is rated at 0. That's all. But I do support it.
Say it important again.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous. So any other, well, there is item 10.4, the call for resolutions, Association of Kootenai Boundary Local Governments, and as I was gonna put Councilor McIsaac on the spot, or Councilor Hamilton.
He's actually the chair of the resolutions committee.
He's the chair. That's what I read.
That was a quick.
Good job.
Perhaps you could speak to this for us.
Yes, I'd be happy to, especially for people that haven't been to AKBLG. I'll give the 60-second synopsis. So the Association of Kootenai Boundary Local Government is one of 5 regional groups that represent municipalities, local governments, and districts all over the province. The primary responsibility of those groups is to carry resolutions from the member organizations within them to UBCM, where they get considered and debated on and so on, and hopefully get carried on to the provincial government, which will then hopefully pay attention to the concerns of our particular region. It is our best opportunity to have a shared voice with a bunch of our neighbors when we have a shared concern. And examples in the past have been things like BC ambulance, forestry practices on private land versus public, et cetera, et cetera. The resolutions have to be in, they get reviewed by the UBCM committee before coming back and before coming to the AGM. So hence the timeline when it's gonna happen, when the thing has to be done, which I believe is February 20th. What I would suggest we do is, if there are resolutions, we have an opportunity to have a discussion then at the next committee of the whole with a vote for sending the resolutions at the following meeting. That would let us meet the timeline for the resolutions in. So I'm also happy offline to have longer discussions about what's going on there, or answer any questions right now, but that's essentially what the reasoning for doing it is and where it's going to go and what we ultimately end up will happen with it.
Any questions for Councilman Bennett? Oh, thank you for that. Were there any other items before we get to 10.9, our late item, that caught people's eye in terms of correspondence that they would speak to?
Procedural question.
Yes.
Is there like, do we have to add that to our committee of the whole agenda? What, Councilor?
Corporate administration, we have that flagged, so we'll be bringing that forward for you. It'll be item where then council can discuss. And we will also be providing the sheet that's very helpful from AKBLG, which kind of gives you guidelines as to how to write the resolutions and how they should be worded so that they apply to not just the city of Fernie, but resolutions that are relevant to other local governments within our area and hopefully across the province.
Yes. Okay, item, we could speak the late item. Ms. Dan, can you give us a synopsis of what the Chamber of Commerce is actually asking here?
Yeah, so we received this letter from the Chamber of Commerce today for upcoming Grizz Days Festival. So by the City of Fernie Council providing a resolution recognizing Grizz Days as a municipally significant event, what it allows them to do is charge slightly above cost for alcohol. And so then that is able to be used to fund other activities in the festival. It reduces the strain on them to go out for different grants, different sources of funding. They're able to somewhat self-fund. So that is why they're asking for this, so that they're able to continue on with their planning activities, because Grizz Days will shortly be here.
Councilman McCaskill.
Move to send a support a letter from them.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Kelly. Any discussion? Councilor Evans.
What was our previous stance, previous years? What changed?
I don't believe that we
If I may.
Yeah.
The actual requirement for the municipally significant event thing is new. Previous to last year, that didn't exist within BCLC at all. That last year was the first year they brought in, and it's part of how they're differentiating for, and I can speak about this a little because I've actually had to go through this process as well myself. And so what happens is the government doesn't really want events making money off of booze, is essentially what the gist of it is. And so if you're going to make money on booze, they want to know, what are you doing with the money? What they've done is they've created an envelope here for specific events where, especially events that run year in, year out, the extra money can be used to self-fund the event and improve it over the long term, et cetera, which is not something, say, a one-off party in a park or something you might be doing. And so because it's brand new, we haven't, to the best of my knowledge, created a specific policy, and Mr. Bornowski may actually be able to correct me here. I don't think we have a specific policy with regards specifically to municipally significant events. I know we have done it once before for another event, but I don't know if a policy has been created, but that is, we haven't had to do it lots before because it's relatively new.
Mr. Bornowski.
Councilor McIsaac is absolutely correct, through council. And if you recall discussions about our reserve development strategy and RMI projects, we have identified as a priority crafting on right away a event and animation strategy for the city, co-funded with Tourism Fernie. In that, we'd be identifying what are our core events, what are animation activities that provide for a great visitor experience and local experience, and then identifies what are those municipally significant events that repeat year after year, so that there's a bit of a framework to help council guide these decisions.
Thank you. So, forgive me, they require us to provide them with a resolution on record at this meeting in support of this, is that correct?
Yes, so when it was first moved to provide them a letter of support, I had a resolution right here. I was hoping to, which I believe is your intention, that the City of Fernie Council recognizes Grizz Day Festival as a municipally significant event. While we, as Councilor Boranowski, as our CEO Boranowski had just mentioned, we are in the process of working through this, setting up different policies, procedures. I kept this a little intentionally vague to not say the 2023 Grizz Days event. And then what we will do is come back to this in the summer when we do have other events, such as Wapiti, which also in the past required a resolution to be recognized as a municipally significant event. Taking a look, do we need to provide a resolution every single year, or is this something we can provide for a set term of years? This is something staff will go research and then bring back to council for information. Yes, you may know. It has to happen every year.
Yes, it has to happen every year. So
Okay.
we have to actually include the date on it.
Okay,
And it has to be included every year, which I think speaks to Mr. Boranowski's comments with regards to what we really need is a list
yeah,
that we're already prepared with. That would be the easiest.
and a calendar.
Yeah.
Councilor Schussman.
This is a no-brainer, and I definitely move this, but we're gonna be known as the guys that raise the price of a pint for the business. We're gonna have to own it.
Councilor Ratner.
Just thought about this, your worship, is there any impact in terms of effort or man hours for city of Fernie? Okay, I'm good.
So I'll ask you to read your intentionally vague, no, you.
Yeah, it's okay. When we actually send these out, it gets printed on very fancy paper and it gets signed and it gets stamped and it will have the date. It will be specific about that. So then we will meet the requirements of the BCLC, who are very lax about everything that they receive. So there will be a specific date on this, but it is that the City of Fernie Council recognizes Grizz Days Festival as a municipally significant event. It has been moved by Councilor McIsaac and seconded by Councilor Audrey Kelly.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Thank you. That concludes business of the regular meeting. I will ask for a resolution.
We'll leave reports from council.
Oh, I'm sorry. We do. You highlighted. Thank you. Reports from council members. Can I start with Councilor McIsaac?
Oh, yes, thank you, Your Worship. I was going to go into a long diatribe about AKBLG, which we just had a meeting earlier today. Councilor Hamilton, myself, and a bunch of other councilors and mayors from about the region, specifically to discuss resolutions and the upcoming convention. And since I covered that ground earlier, I'll nothing else to report.
Thank you. Councilor Rather.
Nothing much, your worship, just looking forward to AKBOG, meeting others, as well as spending some time with my colleagues.
Excellent. Councilor Hamilton.
I could go into more detail about AKBLG as well, but no sense in flogging the dead horse, so to speak, so I'm not going to.
Councilor Schussman.
Been making it out into some hockey games and out in the community to get people's feedback, and definitely a lot of that, and most of it's pretty good these days.
Excellent. Thank you. Councilor Nixon.
Well, I did my Elk Valley streaking in Canmore and Banff last weekend. I was absolutely shocked at how great their bus system was there as well. Their bus service was fantastic. And then today something came up where somebody, and I should ask this for an email, but the BC Transit that operates between Elkford, Sparwood, and Fernie, I guess it's leaving people behind because they're at capacity.
Oh.
So I'm just wondering if we have, those people are working here in the community as well, right? So they miss their bus, they don't get to go to work that day. So they don't make any money. So I'm just wondering if we have any access to stats and capacity of this for this community. I mean, we need better bus service for sure.
Excellent question.
So,
Yeah.
It's running at capacity.
Can anyone on staff speak to that? CO Bornowski?
I've been about to initiate conversations about BC Transit and shuttle service with the regional district. The planning for transit services are handled through the regional district and then BC Transit. But they are our primary contact. I think it would be an excellent discussion for our forum while we are at the regional district on Thursday and Friday. And I'll add it to my list of items to speak with, because we can speak with their CAO and staff responsible for the service area. I do know BC Transit is aware that previously Fernie has been keen to see expanded and enhanced transit, but ultimately it is a service that we need to coordinate with the regional district and then determine what component of that increase in service Fernie would want.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and in addition, I've reached out to the other two Elk Valley mayors and our regional director to meet in advance of the next RDK meeting, and that is one of the topics of discussion is how do we improve transit service in the Elk Valley?
Awesome.
There was actually a survey that they did, and there were some goals in that survey, which we were next to the Fernie Chamber of Commerce asking that as question. So I do have a little bit of stuff in there, because of it. I have shown.
Thanks.
Plans to expand, right?
There is a BC Transit Futures plan for the region, and it speaks a little bit to future capacity. Yeah,
And survey ridership and that kind of stuff.
yeah, you're correct, Councilor.
Councilor Kelly.
So I continue to engage with folks in the community, and our CAO has helped me with some of the things that have been thrown at me. Thank you so much, CAO. I'm really looking forward to going with my colleagues to the Orientation and Governance Forum. It's continuing to be delightful to learn many, many new things. And I wanted to say there's special appreciation to councillors McIsaac and Hamilton and Dixon for your help and your experience being new. I appreciate it. And on a sad note, I would like to express condolences to the family of Frank Raymond, who recently passed. He was a well-known and well-loved member, especially in the hockey community, and he will be missed.
I don't have a lot to add, except I did have a conversation with our library director, and she has asked, would council be interested in participating in something along the lines of council recommends, or what is council reading, that she would like to post in the library to get the word, contribute to literacy in the community, however you want to frame it. So I thought I would float that for the council and.
Can we drop a motion here?
Can we create a motion that forces everyone to participate?
No R. I mean, they're not happy with the Elon Musk list of 7 books he must read. Oh my goodness.
So I'd love to participate, if folks are interested.
I'd be happy to.
Yeah, so
Okay.
fun.
It's not gonna be a lot, but it's gonna be a few.
That's
Lots of pictures.
that's all she requires. I don't know if we need a motion to that effect, but I could have a conversation with her and say we're all game and let her know that I would love to participate. Thank you. That, I believe, concludes the business of the regular meeting, and we'll now look for a resolution to close. I'll ask Corporate Officer Daniel to read our resolution.
Yes, that council closed the meeting to the public pursuant to section 91E of the community charter as the subject matter relates to the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements.
I have the mover, Councilor Hamilton, Councilor McIsaac, all in favor? We are now in closed session. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.